On this voyage, we set sail into the book of Vayikra, Leviticus. The Mishkan now stands complete. The dwelling place of the Holy One, blessed be He, rests among the people of Israel. The cloud of His presence fills the sanctuary, and the camp of Israel gathers around it. And yet, a great question remains. How does a human being approach the Holy One? How does a mortal draw near to the Creator of heaven and earth? For though the Mishkan now stands among the people, the Torah teaches that drawing near to Hashem is not a casual thing. It requires attentiveness. It requires humility. And above all, it requires that we learn to hear the voice of the one who calls. And so on this voyage, we shall explore what it means when the captain calls. We shall learn what happens when a sailor hears. When a sailor listens and hears the call and answers. And we shall see what happens when the call is ignored. For the Torah begins this portion with the simple yet powerful declaration, Vayikra el Moshe. And he called to Moses. And if Hashem calls, then the question that remains for every sailor upon the sea is this: will he answer? But before we continue this voyage, crew, let us first declare the eternal truth that has guided the people of Israel across every sea and every generation. Listen well, crew, for these words have carried the people of Israel through deserts, through storms, across the centuries, and they remind us that the captain of all creation is one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Now then, crew, the sea be wide, and the winds be strong, and the voyage before us is long. But every great journey requires a chart. A sailor would never cross the ocean without a compass to guide the way. And in the same way, the people of Israel do not wander through life without guidance. For within its words are hidden wisdom, instruction, warning, and hope. Treasures that have guided the people of Israel through deserts, through exile, and through the centuries. So steady the helm. Open your eyes and keep a weathered eye upon the horizon, mates. For there be treasures in the Torah. Let the voyage begin.
From names once hidden, roots we reclaim. From scattered sparks, we learn our name. Through longest night, the call remains the same. Echoed truth, no time restrained. Treasures in the Torah, long proclaimed. Ancient truth becomes eternal flame. By the Torah's light, we chart our way through darkest night to break of day. Across the seas where exiles roam, the written word becomes our home. What once was hidden now is shown, guiding us where truth has grown. From generations, voice and flame, we rise to walk the path again. Avast me hearties, welcome to Treasures in the Torah. Welcome aboard.
Every sailor who has ever walked the deck of a ship knows one truth above all others. When the captain calls, the wise sailor listens. But not every sailor does. And so let me tell you a tale from the sea. One night, upon the open waters, the wind began to rise. At first, it was only a whisper against the sails, the sort of wind that a sailor hardly notices. But before long, the wind straightened. The waves began to strike the hull with greater force, and the sky grew as dark as clouds gathered across the horizon. A storm was forming upon the sea. From the quarterdeck, the captain watched the waters carefully, for the captain had seen something the crew had not yet noticed, hidden within the darkness. And hidden in the darkness ahead was a line of jagged rocks waiting beneath the waves. Then the captain raised his voice across the deck and gave the commands, "All hands come about!" For the course of the ship needed to change before the rocks could claim the vessel. Now, the first sailor heard the captain's voice clearly. He understood the command. He knew that the wind was rising and the storm was drawing near. Yet, within his heart, he began to reason with himself. He said, "Surely the danger is still far away. Surely the ship will hold its course a little while longer. Surely the captain's command can wait." So the sailor remained where he stood. He heard the captain's call, yet he chose not to answer. And because the call was ignored, the work that needed to be done was left undone. The rigging was not secured. The sails were not trimmed. The deck was not prepared for the storm that was now approaching. And when the wind finally struck with full force, the ship launched violently upon the waves. A spar broke loose from the rigging and swung across the deck with a terrible force. The sailor who had ignored the captain's voice was struck down and thrown hard against the planks. For the sea shows little mercy to those who ignore the captain's call. But the second sailor heard the same command. He heard the same voice. He did not hesitate, for a faithful sailor knows that when the captain calls, the time for debate has already passed. So he rose from his post at once. He secured the rigging. He trimmed the sails. He joined the crew, and bringing the ship about before the rocks could even claim the vessel. And when the storm finally broke upon the ship, the crew was ready. The ropes held fast. The sails were set true. And though the winds were fierce and the waves were high, the ship passed safely through dark waters. And so it is with the voice of Hashem. The captain calls. Some sailors hear the call and remain where they are. Others rise and answer at once. And sometimes the safety of the entire ship depends upon which sailor we choose to be. The captain calls. Will you respond? And long before any sailor ever walked the deck of a ship, the Holy One, blessed be He, called a servant of Israel. As it is written in the Torah, Vayikra el Moshe. And he called to Moses. This is how the book of Vayikra, Leviticus, begins. Not with a command, not with a law, but with a call. For before instruction is given, before offerings are described, before the service of the Mishkan is explained, the Torah tells us that Hashem called to Moshe. And Moshe answered. But Moshe was not the only servant who heard the voice of Hashem. Again and again throughout the Tanakh, the Holy One calls and the faithful answer. In the book of Shmuel Aleph, 1 Samuel chapter 3, the young boy Shmuel served in the house of Hashem. One night, while the lamp still burned in the sanctuary, the voice of Hashem called to him. At first, the boy did not understand the voice that called. At first, he did not hear, he did not understand, he did not recognize the voice. But when he finally recognized the voice of Hashem, he answered with humility. See, he did not recognize his voice at first. Kind of like a stranger standing on the dock yelling out your name. You are not going to recognize it, but you learn to hear and respond to the word and the voice and the prompting of Hashem. And the scriptures tell us, Shemu Aleph, 1 Samuel 3:10. And in the book of Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 6, we see the prophet beheld a vision of the throne of Hashem. Seraphim stood upon him, stood above him, and the glory of the Holy One filled the sanctuary. And the voice of heaven declared, "Whom shall I send? Who will go for us?" And the prophet answered without hesitation. And so throughout the Tanakh, we see the same pattern repeated. The captain calls, the servant answers. And as in the case of Isaiah, he said, "Here I am, send me." He heard the voice of Hashem. But hearing the call is only the beginning. For a sailor may hear the captain's command and still fail to act wisely. And then we find ourselves in a predicament. And when that happens, the ship itself may suffer the consequences. For a vessel upon the sea depends upon the vigilance of every sailor aboard her. A neglected duty, a careless act, a small breach left unrepaired may endanger the entire voyage. And that, crew, brings us together for another lesson from the sea. Let me tell you a tale. A captain once set sail upon a long voyage across uncertain waters. For many days, the journey went well. The winds were steady and the sails were full, and the ship moved proudly across the waves. But one night, the vessel struck floating debris hidden beneath dark waters. The hull was damaged. At first, the breach seemed small. Only a little water entered the hold. Some sailors said, "Surely this is nothing. The ship is strong. The voyage may continue." But the wise captain knew better. For a breach in the hull, however small, will grow worse if it is left unattended. The water that enters the ship slowly will eventually fill the hold. And a vessel that is not repaired will not complete its voyage. The captain ordered the crew to repair the breach. The damaged wood must be sealed. The hull must be restored. Only then may the ship continue safely upon its course. And so it is with the soul. When something within us is broken, it must be repaired. That is the meaning of the offerings described in Vayikra, Leviticus. The Hebrew word used in the Torah is korban. The word korban does not merely mean sacrifice. It means to draw near. When something has been damaged, when a breach has formed in the hull of the soul, the Torah shows us how that breach may be repaired so that we may draw near to Hashem once again. Now here, another lesson from the sea. A captain once set sail toward a distant harbor. The voyage would be long, and the waters were unfamiliar, but the captain possessed the tools necessary to guide the ship safely. He had the stars above him. He had the charts before him. And he held in his hand a compass that always pointed the proper course. For many days, the ship sailed well. The wind filled the sails, worked faithfully, and the vessel moved steadily across the waters. But over time, the captain grew careless. He stopped checking the compass as often as he should have. One small adjustment seemed unnecessary. One slight change of direction seemed like a rather small thing. Then another degree, and then another. And though the ship still sailed proudly across the water, the course had slowly changed. The harbor the captain intended to reach now lay far beyond the horizon. It was almost unreachable. For a ship does not run aground at once. It drifts first, slowly, quietly, almost without notice. But a wise captain does not despair when he sees the drift. He does not abandon the voyage. He simply turns the wheel. He checks the compass once more. He corrects the course. And the ship begins to move once again towards the harbor. And so it is with the soul. The Torah does not hide our drift. It reveals it, so that we may turn the wheel, correct our course, and sail home again. The turning, this correction of the course, is what sages of Israel call teshuvah. It means to turn, to return, to bring the vessel back to the proper path. And yet, another lesson from the sea. A ship sailed through waters so dark that neither moon nor star could be seen. Clouds covered the heavens, and the night was thick with shadow. Upon the deck of that vessel burned a lantern whose light allowed the sailors to see their work and to move safely about the ship. As long as the lantern burned brightly, the crew could see the ropes they handled, the sails they adjusted, the deck beneath their feet. The light of the lantern guided their labor and protected them from stumbling into the darkness. But one sailor grew careless. He assumed that the lantern would continue to burn without attention. He did not trim the wick. He did not add oil to the lamp. He believed the light would simply take care of itself. And slowly, almost without notice, the flame began to weaken. The light grew dim. The shadows grew longer across the deck. Before long, the sailors could no longer see clearly. They stumbled over ropes. They lost their footing on the boards, and the work of the ship became dangerous. And so the Torah teaches us in Vayikra, Leviticus 6:6, that a continual fire shall burn upon the altar. It shall not go out. The fire upon the altar required attention. It required care. The priests were commanded to tend the flame so that it would never be extinguished. And so it is with the fire of devotion of the human soul. Faith cannot be neglected. It cannot be ignored. It must be tended. It must be guarded. It must be fed. For when the flame of the soul grows dim, darkness soon follows. But when the flame is tended carefully, the light continues to guide the voyage. Now, crew, on this voyage, we have a tradition to also remember those who heard the call of Hashem generations far beyond where we are, and the age in which our story is set, mainly. Through this, the ship sails the 17th century. We call the covenant continues to echo across the centuries. But today, through this spyglass, we look far beyond these waters and far beyond this age to a man who heard the call and answered it with courage. His name was Captain Artur Carlos de Barros Basto. He lived in Portugal in the 20th century, in a land where many descendants of the forced conversions of the Inquisition had long forgotten the covenant of their ancestors. For generations, these families had lived outwardly as Christians, while secretly remembering that their ancestors had been Jews. But Captain Barros Basto heard the call of that lost inheritance, and he chose to answer it. He openly returned to the faith of Israel. And more than that, he devoted his life to helping the hidden descendants of the Jewish people rediscover their heritage. He traveled throughout Portugal searching for families whose ancestors had been forced to abandon Judaism during the Inquisition. He spoke with them. He taught them. He encouraged them to return to the covenant of their fathers. And because of this mission, he became known as the Apostle of the Moranos, the one who helped hidden Jews remember who they truly were. But the path of one who answers the call is not always easy. Captain Barros Basto faced opposition. He faced ridicule. He faced injustice. Yet he continued the work. Because when the captain calls, the faithful do not turn away. And so the story of Captain Arthur Carlos de Barros Basto reminds us that the call of Hashem does not belong only to the past. It echoes across every generation. And wherever a soul hears that call and answers it, the covenant lives on. The portion of Vayikra, Leviticus, begins with the call. Vayikra el Moshe, and he called to Moshe. And from that call flows the entire teaching of this portion. For throughout the voyage of life, throughout our expeditions that we take in life, the captain continues to call. The question is not whether the call is given. The question is whether we will answer it. We have seen what happens when the call is ignored. Like the first sailor in our tale, the man may hear the command of the captain and yet delay his obedience. He may convince himself that the danger is distant, that the command can wait, that someone else will take responsibility. But the sea is not patient with such reasoning, and neither is life. For the consequences of neglect often fall not only upon the one who ignored the call, but upon the entire ship. We have also seen that when damage occurs, the breach must be repaired. A wise captain does not ignore a crack in the hull. He does not pretend that the water entering the ship is harmless. He repairs the vessel before the voyage continues. And so the Torah teaches that when something within us has been damaged, when a wrong has been done, when a duty has been neglected, the breach must be repaired. That is the purpose of the offerings described in Vayikra, not to punish the soul, but to restore it, to draw near once more. We have also learned that a ship rarely loses its course all at once. It drifts first, 1 degree, then another, then another. And before long, the harbor that once lay ahead now lies far beyond the horizon. But the mercy of Hashem is this: the compass still points the way, and the wheel of the ship can still be turned. This turning, this return to proper course, is what the sages of Israel call teshuvah. It means return, to turn the vessel back towards the harbor. And finally, we have seen that a lantern upon a dark sea must be tended carefully, for a flame that is neglected will slowly fade. And so the Torah commands that the fire upon the altar must never go out, for the fire represents devotion. It represents the living relationship between the people of Israel and the Holy One. If that fire is tended faithfully, the light continues to guide the voyage. But if it is neglected, darkness soon follows. And so the lessons of this voyage are clear. The captain calls. The hull must be repaired. The compass must be checked. And the flame must be kept burning. The captain calls. Will you answer? Crew, as we bring this voyage to its close, let us receive the ancient blessing that has been spoken over the people of Israel for generations. This is the blessing given to the priests in the Torah. Yivarecha Adonai v'yishomrecha, Ya'er Adonai panav alecha v'yihunecha, Yasu Adonai panav alecha, v'yasemblecha shalom. May Hashem bless you and keep you. May Hashem make his face to shine upon you, be gracious unto you. May Hashem lift his voice towards you and grant you shalom. And now, crew, as we set our course for the next voyage, receive the captain's blessing. May the wind in your sails be filled with Hashem's righteousness, and may the evil urge plunge straight to Davy Jones' locker. Crew, if this voyage through the Torah has encouraged you today, then share the journey with others. For the wisdom of the Torah was never meant to remain hidden in the hold of a single ship. It is meant to be carried across the sea from harbor to harbor. So if you found treasure in today's voyage, share this teaching with somebody who may also need to hear the captain's call. And if you have not yet joined the crew, be sure to subscribe so that you do not miss the next voyage through the Torah. And when you leave a comment below, tell the crew from which harbor you are watching. For it is always a joy to see how far these voyages travel. Until our next voyage, crew, keep a steady hand upon the wheel. Hold tight to the helm. Keep the flame burning bright. And keep your ears open when the captain calls. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. I look forward to having you aboard next week.